for the brain, how it helps with development, how it helps develop other skills that are good in other disciplines, how it can support learning and skills in other. I love that. And then I love the stuff that can't really be proven in a scientific test, like the stuff it does for the heart, the way that it can make us feel, the way it can give us a chance to express ourselves or feel like we're in another place. Like those two things happening at the same time, that's pretty cool. I think the band kids are the best kids. I love being around band kids, and I love what band can do as far as it shaping a person's character or personality. And I love getting to be responsible for putting more band kids out into the world. Not everybody does band forever, but once a band kid, always a band kid. And so we're so excited to just have that chance to make a difference in your child's life and in the world. And then my father is actually was my first and best teacher. And that's what made me want to be a teacher. He wasn't actually a teacher. He actually was a high school dropout and just kind of worked his way through. But he, even though that was his upbringing, he had this love for learning, and he loved knowledge, and he loved music, and he loved to share stuff with me, like teaching me whether it was about history or math or whatever, but teaching me about music. And my father is not a very affectionate man. But like when I could tell, when I grew up, and I realized he thinks that knowledge, and specifically music, is like one of the most important things you can have. And he was giving that to me. That was his way of showing me he loved me without being affectionate in other ways. And so to me, teaching is a labor of love. And so I am so excited to have the chance to be able to love on your kids in this way. And really excited for this year.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mrs. Wright, and I'm the other band teacher here at Heritage. This is my first year in the Liberty School District. I moved up here this summer with my husband from Florida, actually, is where I did most of my growing up and did my first few years in teaching. My husband's from the area, and so after we got married this summer, we decided to move back closer to family, and so that brought us back here to Liberty. I'm very happy to be joining this family and this great tradition Mr. Graven was talking about. It's really an honor to be involved. I went to Florida State University, where I got my music ed degree, and that's my husband and I on our honeymoon. We climbed a mountain. I was very proud of myself. I decided to be a band teacher mostly. I kind of had two options in life. My mom's side of the family is all either musicians or teachers, and my dad's side of the family is in the military. And boot camp didn't sound like fun. And so I decided being a music teacher sounded like a really great option for me. And now and ever since I walked into the band room when I was in 6th grade, band has always been home for me and been a safe place and just my favorite part of the day. And I love being able to bring that opportunity to your students, to give them a safe place and a home and a family and an environment where they can be themselves and express themselves every day through the beautiful art of music. So that's my kind of why of why I became a band teacher.
And who was your husband's 8th grade band teacher?
My husband's 8th grade band teacher was Mr. Reagan. Isn't that crazy? I don't know if that takes me more or him more, but we'll let you figure that one out. So we are not the only two teachers that will have the privilege of working with your students this year. We are so lucky to get someone who comes from a not here. We are so lucky in Liberty to have a system where your students have multiple teachers that can help them grow in their musical journey. So Mr. Dragan and I are here every day. We occasionally spend, he spends 2 mornings at Liberty North, I spend 4 mornings at Liberty North, but once classes start here, we're both here for the whole day. We also welcome over Mr. Fuller, who is our head director at North, who works mainly with percussion, and Mr. Johnson, who is the assistant director at North that works a lot with the brass and the low brass musicians. Mr. Woods and Ms. Gardner are the teachers located at South Valley, but they come here sometimes to specialize on their instrument and just help out, just like we sometimes go over to South Valley to help them. We also are going to have a student teacher for everyone KC. The second semester is when he'll be spending most of his time here, but he'll be spending some time just observing. He's actually coming tomorrow, so I'll be Mr. Andes. And then we have 2 high school interns that come in and help as well. Mr. Hyder and Mr. Canning also help the students. So it's a lot of people that get to come in and work with your students every day, which is an awesome opportunity for us to work with them a little bit more one-on-one, give them that attention that they need, and also for the kids to get more perspectives on the play. So right now in class, us tonight that we want the band room to be a safe space and a family for your students. That means we have to get to know them. And so we've been spending a lot of time just making sure we know all their names, knowing little things about them, and then start with the basics of music. Today actually was the first day in class that we started out testing the mouthpieces for the different instruments that your students can play in band, which we'll talk about later, but we did start that process today with a few of the kids, so we'll continue that throughout the next few days so that the kids have had an opportunity to feel what it feels like to play all the instruments before they decide which one they want to land on for the year. And of course, basis of rhythm, note reading, all that stuff.
All right, one of the big questions that we get is how do you get an instrument? Like, we're going to work on working with your student to decide what they play. We talked to them today about how it's not quite true that the kid just says, this is what I'm going to play, I've decided. Neither is it true that we say, this is what you're going to play. We talk to each other, we want to know what they like, what they want, what sounds they like to listen to, and then we give feedback about what's actually the best fit. And what's really awesome is when those two things turn out to be the same. When what they want and what we think is the right fit matches, that's pretty easy and that's awesome. Sometimes it's more like their second choice is actually what we think should be their first choice. I don't think I told you this, but when I was in school, I wanted to play the trumpet so bad. That was the thing I wanted. And I had trombone as a second choice. And when I tried the instruments, the band director said, you'd be fine at this, but I think trombone would be a better choice. And so I went with that advice. It wasn't like I didn't want to play that. It's just that I wanted the other one more. But I went with that, and things turned out pretty well. I think that I ended up with that. So we do we want to know what they want. If they are like, I really don't like the flute, and we think they'd be great at it, still would be a really good fit. So we do help them decide that. When we do figure that out, how do you get an instrument? The most common way people take care of getting an instrument is renting to own from a store like Haven Music, which is located here in town over in the same parking lot as Savers, or Meyer Music, which is a little bit further away. But that doesn't particularly matter because a lot of people will take advantage of going through the rental process online, and then those companies will deliver the instruments directly to the school. The rent-to-own program is good because you're paying a little bit every month, and if you stick with it long enough, eventually you do own it. While you are renting it, it includes repairs and like a service agreement. So like while you're renting it, if they accidentally drop something and it needs to be, or chipped, or something gets dented, that thing will get repaired for free as part of the agreement with it. So it's a really good situation. It also, renting to own, allows you the opportunity to perhaps upgrade later. Your student will start on a beginner style instrument. If it goes long enough and they get really serious about it, they might want something that's a little more advanced. And there's kind of like that idea, you trade that one in, and the equity you've already got in that instrument gets applied to a new one. So the advantages of outright buying an instrument are that, when you buy it up front, you're gonna pay less than you are if you pay monthly over the long run. But there can be a little bit of a risk in going all in on something if you're not totally sure that your student is going to be in this for the long haul. So there are pluses and minuses to that. If you already have something, if you already have an instrument at home that maybe you as the parent played, or your brother played, or the neighbor gave you, that might be fine. Depending on how long it's been since it's actually been played, it might need a little bit of TLC before it's okay to be played in class. So if you have an instrument at home that you're hoping that that's what your child can play, we would love to see it as soon as possible so that we can evaluate it and let you know if it might need to get something fixed on it before we start playing. I think that's it. Am I still next? Yeah. So the instruments that we start in beginning band typically are these 5 that are in bold here in the red: the flute, the clarinet, trumpet, trombone, and percussion. Other instruments that are included in band include things like the oboe, the saxophone, the euphonium, bassoon, French horn, tuba, etc. As a rule, we don't start anything other than those first 5. That being said, every year since I've been here, somebody has started on something outside of those 5 for whatever reason. It was like, hey, we have a saxophone at home already. That's what they'd like to play eventually. Can we just start on it because we already have it? Well, in that case, yes. There was somebody that actually had their own French horn at home. And we were like, well, yeah, that's what you're wanting to play. You already have it. Let's do that. Sometimes there are people that they come in and they're like, I know in my heart of hearts that I'm meant to play the tuba. So we talk about starting on that, because typically what we might do is somebody would rent a clarinet from Taylor for a while, and then if it's determined that they're like, I think that I want to make this move to saxophone, take the clarinet back, trade it in, the money gets applied for a saxophone, easy peasy. With instruments that are really large, like the tuba, the euphonium, the French horn, bari sax, things like that, those are so cost prohibitive to get that the stores don't even rent them out. So the school district owns things like tubas and euphoniums and French horns and things, and you rent from the school. So if we think that that is where it's going to go eventually, we might try to just start there. Because, and this isn't the end of the world, but let's say we start on trombone for a while and then want to switch to tuba. Well, when you turn that trombone back into the store, you just turn it back in and then have to start over again renting the tuba from the school, which is a different place. So in any of those cases where it's some of these, let's have a conversation. Let's just have a one-on-one conversation about what that might be. But flute, clarinet, trumpet, trombone, and percussion. One thing that's really, really important is that we have vetted several music companies and retailers and settled as a district on Kalen Meyer, because they have a reputation and proven history with us of providing quality instruments and quality service. Instruments from other places may not be at that level. Certain massive corporations that exist only online are places where you might be able to get an instrument-shaped object that isn't actually a working musical instrument. It's almost more like a toy. They look nice, but they don't work for very long, and music stores won't actually repair them because they don't consider them to be actual instruments. I kind of liken it to this. Let's say that you've got a 6-year-old, they want to be a football player for Halloween, so you get a football player costume with a jersey and a plastic helmet, and it's super cute. But when that kid got to high school, you wouldn't want them to wear that helmet to play football. This is not a real helmet. It's a toy. Similar thing here. You want them to have the real thing. That's one other thing I was going to say real quick. Well, if you find an instrument that is significantly less expensive than you might see at Kalen and Meyer, that wouldn't be a signal of, oh my gosh, I found a great deal. It's probably a sign that there may be something wrong with it. If you have a question, just ask. With retailers, or with not retailers, with things like a Craigslist, you may find a killer deal. Some people have a quality instrument, and they don't know how much it's worth, and they part with it for peanuts compared to what it's worth. Sometimes the reason it doesn't cost very much is because it isn't very good. We are always happy to help advise you on those if you have questions about that. But Craigslist can be a real mixed bag. Pawn shops, oh my gosh, we had a student come in one time. Bless her heart, she was so excited. Mr. Freeman, I found a flute, it was only $50. It was actually parts of 3 different flutes, and they didn't fit together. So it was $50 and nothing at that point, which was a real bummer. I know, it was a super sad day. We hope that our first day with instruments can be September 15th, and that you would place your order online by September the 5th. We have just started matching kids up, or getting kids trying out on instruments. If your student doesn't know for sure by September 5th what they're playing, don't worry. This is ideally all your orders are placed by September 5th, and ideally we start on September 15th, but it's not a hard and fast rule. If things have to be pushed back a couple days for whatever reason, we will live. But this is the timeline we're trying for. Talk a little bit about percussion. Why percussion is different from flute, clarinet, trumpet, trombone. There are a couple reasons. And why we made kind of a big deal about it, and what Ms. Wright is going to talk about next, is as a percussionist, it's just important to know that a lot of people, when they get in their head about joining band, they think, well, I'm going to play the drums. We've talked in class about how it's not quite like that, like sitting down at a drum set with the cymbals and the kick drum and the snare and all that. That's very cool. It's just not really what school band percussion is about. School band percussion is a lot more about playing keyboard instruments like the xylophone and playing the snare drum, singular. than it is about that kind of a drum set. So a lot of people get one picture in their head, and we just want to make sure that people know what they're doing. Percussionists are expected to practice about twice as much as everybody else because they're really learning the keyboard and the snare, almost two separate instruments, but everybody else is learning one. It is a bit more expensive because what you end up getting when you're renting is you actually get a marimba, which is kind of a mini xylophone that you'll put together at your house. And you will not, unless you want to, have an actual snare drum at your house. You would have a drum pad. Your ears will thank you if that's what you end up with. With percussion, because it is double the stuff, we recommend lessons. We strongly recommend lessons right away in percussion to make sure that they are able to stay on track because it's almost, for a percussionist, almost more than we could cover in class. And there's a reason why we have to do this, which we'll talk about in a second, where we have to kind of evaluate percussionists in a way we don't with the other instruments. If 15 people in one class learn to play clarinet, okay, they're all bringing their own clarinet. With percussion, the instruments we're limited to what's in the room. You know, there are only so many keyboards or drums in the room, and we couldn't have 15 people play them because there's not enough stuff for the people, let alone room. So there's why there's some percussion slightly at a different angle.
So if your student is thinking that percussion is their top choice or one of their top choices, like they seriously are considering playing percussion this year, then on Thursday night, so today's Tuesday, so in 2 nights, Thursday night, we have a percussion night where we have the opportunity to evaluate your students and work with them a little bit on those percussion instruments just to see if it's a good fit. That is at South Valley Middle School. If you were the kids right now, I'd make you repeat that back to you so you remember it. It's South Valley Middle School, not here at Heritage. And it is at 6 p.m. The night runs from 6 to 8, but it is both for our students and South Valley students. And so we're asking Heritage students, if at all possible, to get there at 6. And South Valley students to get there at 7, so we're not all waiting in one big long line at 6. So if you want to get there a couple minutes early, 5:55, 5:50, that's fine, to get your spot in line. And then once you're there, your students will be work with Mr. Fuller, who's our percussion guru, who's the head director over at the high school on snare first, and then if we're finding that that's working really well, we send them over to the mountain instruments. I did get the question tonight, does my student need to know anything for that ahead of time? No, they don't need to know anything ahead of time. We do always tell students stuff like piano lessons when you're in elementary school always helps, because that means you probably know how to read music already, but if your student doesn't, that's totally fine. The purpose of that evening is for us to evaluate things like, does your student have a good sense of steady beat? Do they put in the effort when something doesn't come super easily to them, and are they teachable? So it's okay, I haven't seen treble clef music before, I haven't seen rhythms. Let me give you a quick 2-minute lesson on how that works, and can you adapt to that and get it pretty quickly? Because percussionists are asked to do so much, that process and that kind of skill set is really important for those students. And so, no, they don't need to know anything ahead of time. We're not asking them to prepare anything. It's just for us to kind of see if it's something that they would be successful at. Because at the end of the day, Mr. Reagan and I's goal is for your students to be successful, because when they're successful, they have fun and they want to continue and make music in their lives, and that's our goal as teachers. If they're not having fun, it's probably because they're not being successful on their instrument. That they didn't end up with the right fit. And we want to avoid that as much as possible. So yes, that's you.
So once we double check our list tomorrow, those of you that the student is listed percussion as a top choice will send this information out to just you. Private instruction is something we want to talk about. A lot of people wonder if their kid would need lessons. Well, right away, no, probably not. But for the future, just think about this. Private instruction is the key for maximum success. It is not for someone who's bad to catch up necessarily. It's for someone who is, wherever they are, they would like to level up. And or there's someone that really wants to get into it, that wants that private one-on-one attention that you can't really get in a band class. If anybody is starting on the French horn to the Sunni oboe or percussion, if I was allowed to say you're required to take lessons on those four, I would say that, because they are, long story short, they're just a little quirky and different from some of the things like trumpet trombone, different enough that private lessons are really critical for that. And then some people wonder, well, gosh, why do we need private lessons? Aren't you guys the band teachers? Don't you know it all? And I would just say, to just draw the analogy, this is the setup, how many coaches there are on the Liberty North football team. There's, of course, a head coach, but then they have a specialist. They have a special coach for every position and every type of thing on the team. And those are all, I don't know who all the names change so often, I did not put their names up there. But then if you look at the band staff, you know, based on our instrument specialties, we've got some of those things covered. But otherwise, for somebody that's playing the trumpet to get one-on-one special focused attention on the trumpet, there's no substitute like private lessons. And we have great access to private lesson teachers at Palin Music and William Jewell, just so close to here, you can almost walk there, almost. And so that's pretty cool. Second semester, we will have access to a program called Music Plus, in which you actually can pay for private lessons for your student, but the instructor will come to the school during the day and teach it during your student's band class. We will send out more information about that either at the very beginning of January or the end of December, so if you're interested in taking advantage of that at that time, you'll be able to.
So your student has now picked an instrument, they're so excited, oh my gosh, no, this is my clarinet, oh my gosh, yay! What kind of do we hope for them in order to improve? And so really the secret to success is a little bit of daily practice at home. So up there it says 20 minutes a day is a good daily target. What we're going to tell the students is that they should go home and they should pick maybe one thing that they want to get better for the next day. So at the end of the class, Mr. Reagan and I try to focus on one thing for the students. Like today, we really want you to focus on line 3 in the book, or we want you to focus on this benchmark. Or right now, we're working on articulating this certain note correctly. Just work on that one thing. That might take 20 minutes, it might take 2. But if they come into class the next day and they've worked on that one thing, they've gotten better. And that little bit of incremental daily progress is what's going to really help your students soar in this class. And so that is our goal for them, is to have that daily practice, which is going to involve them kind of making a plan, which is what Mr. David and I will help them with. What you can help them with is at home having some sort of designated space and time in order to have that practice. And so we encourage you to get them a music stand to have at home. In fact, I think they really need to have a music stand at home, because just propping their music book up against a wall on the bed is not going to be the best environment to encourage them to successfully practice, as opposed to just like kind of goof off on their instrument. It's great to goof off on your instrument. You should find what weird sounds it does. Have fun, absolutely. But we also want to have that time when we're focused on making improvements. Some of you might have been in band at some point in your life. You might have been asked to do something like a practice journal or practice record or something. We do not do that. To be honest with you, we find that it's not beneficial because kids lie. And they're like, I totally practice for an hour, and then they don't even know how to put their instrument together. And we're like, so no, you did not do that. Instead, we see the evidence of their practice when they come in and they play for us in class. Whether that's playing class and playing the benchmarks, that's much more useful data for us than you signing off on a card or them signing on a card saying that they practice. So that's not really something we do. A good analogy is treating practicing like video games. You probably do not have to tell your student, hey, you better go practice your Minecraft today. It's really important that you know how to do the Minecraft things. I don't know anything about Minecraft, but I bet you don't have to do that. And it's because it's fun for them. They like Minecraft. It's something that they enjoy. It's our goal that playing your instrument will be fun in that way, and we want to practice it. It might not be that way at first. Mr. Grady uses a really great analogy of playing an instrument is almost like a roller coaster, in that at first, when you're going up, it's really slow. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can't go up. It's going slow. But then you get to the fun part where it goes down and goes fast. And whee, woohoo, exciting. Everybody loves roller coasters, right? So, lost my train of thought. No, you're fine. Absolutely. So, if we can get them to have fun with their practicing, just like they do with the video games, and that's something that we'll work on in class. What you can do is you can encourage them again by having that space for them and that time at home that you encourage them to practice and check in with them about it. And then I'm going to be real with you, kids, close your ears. the first few sounds your kids are gonna make are gonna be the sound only a mother could love. And that's okay, that's fine. When we were the same way, when the first sound I made on my oboe truly sounded like a duck was being sacrificed in like a field somewhere. It sounded very awful. But then they practice that and they get better. But if you can just grin and bear it for a little bit and just be like, wow, you're sounding really great. You sound so much better today than you did yesterday. Show me what you worked on in band class today. Do you know any notes? Can you show me how to make that note? How do you hold your instrument? Do you want to show me how to hold the instrument? Maybe I can hold it. I mean, think about how valuable that experience would be for your students if they had to teach you what we taught them in class that day. That would be so valuable for them, and that would take 2 minutes of your time during the day. So keep talking to them about it, ask them questions, encourage that progress. Be their cheerleader. I know you do that all the time anyway as parents. We just want to shine a light on how you can do that in the dance world, and that will make a huge, huge difference. And then we'll do all the tough work in class, I promise.
And then just the last thing on there is just making sure that they do are able to get there to their performances. Of course, they don't drive, so making sure that they're able to get to all the concerts. I'm going to gloss over this last part in the interest of time, and it can be in writing later. Your students are being assessed and getting feedback daily. The way that looks in the grade book won't be maybe like what we might be used to from elementary school. It's kind of different. If you're in any doubt, ask them how they're doing first, and then if you're not sure, you want to ask us, we're happy to answer that at any time. I do want to say one more thing that I skipped earlier. When we do let you know about the stuff to rent, when you rent an instrument, there's other stuff that comes with it too. We promise you we will not be asking you to purchase something you do not need. When you get a trumpet and we say we also need to have valve oil, etc., things like that, it's not an extra. It's like having gasoline for the car. Like you have to have those things. Again, as far as talking about grades and stuff like that, I can get that for you in writing later because it's pretty dry anyway, the grading process. Really at this point, I think, is the next one? Yeah. So if you think that you've got something that would be great, like a question like I bet a lot of people wonder this, happy to answer that, but it is 7:30. So we're also happy to just let you go, but we'll hang out up here. If you have any questions you want to ask us, please come up. That's what we're here for. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.